Hi guys, welcome to the podcast on With the Mate with Cochlear Kaz. I'm Cara, you can call me Kaz. I'm profoundly deaf and a cochlear implant user. I'm also autistic too and a social media creator. I have a special guest today, Linzi who is a teacher of the deaf. And it's so good to have you along with us. How are you?
I am very well. Thank you for having me. This is very strange that you're on that side of the desk interviewing me, because usually it was the other way about.
Yeah, exactly. I know this is crazy. People who don't know that I have left school now. So yeah.
You're a big grown-up. Proper welcome to the adult world.
I know it's very strange, to be honest. Like during these summer holidays, not having school anymore. It's actually very good, to be honest. I'm just saying, it really is. And obviously, you were my teacher of the deaf. So today we're going to talk about what's it like for you being a teacher of the deaf as your job.
I was one of your teachers of the deaf.
Yeah.
Because you were lucky enough to be in a school with a department.
Exactly, yeah.
Where we have quite a few.
Yeah.
So I'll put that out there that I wasn't just yours.
Yes.
But you had quite a few teachers of the deaf. But you've chosen your favourite one to have here.
That is true. That is true. I know that's good. One of the questions I want to say, I know you were a primary school teacher, but what made you decide you want to be a teacher of the deaf?
So that's interesting. So I was a primary teacher for about 10 years. So I worked mainly with infants. So I worked with P1, P2, P3. And then I had my little girl. So when I had Isla, I was working quite far away from home. So I was in a different council. And I thought I'll come closer back home. And one of the jobs that came up was in my old high school. And I knew the Department for the Deaf would take primary or secondary teachers. So I got a little tour, got a walk around, which was very bizarre in your old school. And I then went for the interview. But I went for the interview with one of my best friends, Mrs. Niven. Yeah. So at the time, she was like, I'm going for this job, teacher of the deaf. And I was like, so am I. So it was very awkward. And then I got the phone call to say, you've got the job. So I was like, great. I feel really bad for my friend. And she phoned me to say, I got the job. So what they very kindly did was they gave us both a job, but we were both part-time, which is what we wanted. So not only did I get a fantastic new job, but I got to work with my best friend.
I know, like, that is a perfect way, because you do want to work with your best friend.
Yeah.
Like, do you know someone there as well? Like, that is...
And what was nice, we were both primary teachers, and we were both getting into this really new environment, working with teenagers, which is very different from P1, 2 and 3. And I think we had each other to rely on, and it was sort of a blessing and a curse. I knew the school, but I didn't, because I knew the school as a pupil.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's very, very different to go back as staff and to be the one leading the lessons and stuff. But I would say not much has changed, and it's still got all the things that I remember. But taking on a role like a teacher of the deaf was brand new. So it was totally different to being a primary teacher.
Yeah, definitely. There must be a difference as well. See, like what you were saying, like, obviously you were working with the younger children in primary school. I know you're working with teenagers. Mm-hmm. How did you feel when you know you're actually working with teenagers?
So I remember one of the first classes, I rocked in and I sat down. So as a teacher of the deaf, we sit with you in some classes, and other times we've got you in the base. And I sat down in one of the classes, and one of the girls was like, I like your hair. And I was like, oh, thanks. And she was like, I was like, oh, this is weird. Okay, so straight away working with teenagers, there's that, am I your friend? Am I your teacher? Like, because you're, I wouldn't say we're close in age, but obviously working with the little ones every day, you're the boss. Yeah. What you say goes. Whereas teenagers, obviously there's that pushback. But no, I thoroughly enjoyed it from day one. So still here.
Yeah, I remember the first time seeing you in English.
Do you?
Yeah, I remember it was last period of the I can't remember what day,
The
but
worst time to get English, isn't it?
yeah, like the last period, and then I remember I was just sitting with my friend at the time, like, who is this? And then that's when we did.
And I probably bounced in like, hi, I'm Mrs. Livy, nice to meet you, how you doing, blah, 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 blah. You're like, whoa, who is this crazy person?
And I was thinking, like, we met in English first year, and look where we are now, like, doing a podcast. It's crazy how time just goes so fast.
I have seen you grow up. I've seen you through a lot of highs and lows, and I think a lot has happened in those short years because you were part of the COVID lockdown time as well, so there was a lot of things changed. School, I joined in the 2019. Obviously COVID was the 2020, so a lot of things changed in that short space of time, and then to see you, I mean, I think every year from third year you said you were going to leave.
No, it's actually so
like genuinely, I convinced you to stay for fourth year. And then I convinced you to be like, just stay for fifth. Honestly, fifth year's fine. Like, you'll be totally fine. And then I think we got to the end of fifth year and I was like, I think you could do it. Like, go for a 6 year, do it. Like, and you were like, oh my God, can't believe I'm staying again. And look what happened.
I know, I remember, like, I don't know how many times I moaned about school to you. Like,
every day.
Like, every day you heard me, like, what am I even here for? Oh, well, I'm happy I stayed, to be honest.
Yes.
Like,
could we have that in writing, please?
Yeah, it was the perfect bit to stay until 6 year, like, all the great memories, definitely.
And can we just say that you ended on such a high? Not only you had been a prefect and you'd done lots of different things, and you had went and there was award ceremonies and there was all sorts of things that you were part of, and then you finished with one of the highest accolades. So it was the Brian Miller Award, which is like a previous head teacher award that is given to someone who embodies the spirit of that school and embodies just going for it and trying to reach your potential, and you were like the perfect candidate.
Oh, thank you. Well, I couldn't go without you and other teachers of the deaf. Like, I would have stayed for yous and the deaf department, like, how far I come. That
means we did our job. Like, if we were convincing you to stay and you were staying just for us, we were okay with that. That meant we were doing well. I
don't know how you can cope that long. Like, how? But I know.
There was a lot of cups of tea. There was a lot of tears. I think there was a lot of uncertainty, but that's part of our job. And I think part of our job it's not so much the teaching of the subjects, because you've got your actual class teacher to do that.
Yeah.
Our job is to support you and to make your learning accessible and to give you the best possible chance, but also then things like that, keeping you in school, or if you needed a cup of tea or you were struggling, that's our job. And I think our department and my colleagues, we do that very well.
Yeah, you guys do it like amazing, like the way you do it to me and other deaf people, obviously, like the support you give us, it's outstanding.
Oh,
yeah. And see, while we were talking about being a primary school teacher, I think we already said this, but what is the difference working with a hearing pupil than a deaf pupil?
I don't know if there is a massive... I'm going to say there's not a massive difference, but then I suppose there is. I think it can be across the board where everyone's a different style of learner.
Yeah.
So in primary, especially for the younger ones, we'll make a lot of visual learning. There'll be a lot of displays. There'll be a lot of things to help you that's not just text on a board or text on a screen.
Yeah.
And it's not just me telling you instructions and telling you a lesson and then you have to go and do it. I think the joy and the creativity that comes through primary teaching is trying to make a lesson come to life, trying to make it fun, trying to make it engaging and make you part of your learning. It's not me just telling you stuff. So working with deaf pupils, that's kind of what they need. The same as any pupil really is You need to work out what style they prefer. We're making it visual so that you've got things to latch onto. Maybe if the speed of the class or the lesson is just that little bit fast, then we've got the beauty of we'll take your notes, we'll reteach things, we'll go over things. So the difference from a hearing pupil and a deaf pupil, that's very hard because you're all individuals anyway. And everyone's got their own abilities and disabilities with different needs. So it's very hard to distinguish between just hearing and non-hearing. But I think for deaf pupils, the biggest thing for us is the lip reading. So we're there to help you with what the teacher's saying. We're there to help you with note-taking, because obviously if you're lip reading, you can't have your head down and be looking at a board to take notes while the teacher's over here telling you extra information, which happens all the time. My number one pet peeve. And I suppose we're there just as that support.
Yeah.
That I think it can be very overwhelming, and people forget that listening fatigue when you're at school and you are lip reading all the time. Pals, teachers, your mum that dropped you off in the morning, your taxi driver, everyone you've come into contact with, you're lip reading, you're trying to hear in a noisy environment. Now, schools are noisy.
Yeah.
We have a deaf department and we are in a very noisy school. There's music going all the time, there's PE stuff happening, there's always sports tournaments. It's a noisy environment. That's tiring. So I think we need to be aware of the exhaustion that deaf pupils end up feeling, and that then is our job to make sure that you're all right.
Yeah, I totally get that, what you're saying. Like, everything you're saying is right. Like, being deaf, it is exhausting then.
Yeah.
Like, listen, like, you know what's it like, obviously, being a teacher of deaf. You see all these deaf pupils, it can be exhausting, being all day, school, different classes, and hearing different things. Yeah, exactly.
And for any other pupil where you've got 7 classes a day, 7 different teachers, 7 different styles, you're being bombarded with stuff to remember, stuff to hand in, homework, instructions for the next day, remember your resources, can you bring in a tub, can you make sure you've got... So the instructions that you get in one period, times that by 7, and then times that by your 5 days a week.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Now, lots of people, we've all done it, you get on with it, there are good days and bad days, but you just have that slight disadvantage, I suppose, where you need that extra bit of help, and that's where we come in.
Yeah, what is the challenging then being a teacher of the deaf? It's okay if you don't have any.
So one of the challenging things was, to be a teacher of the deaf, you must do another degree. So while I got me and my friend Leslie, we both got the job, you have to agree to go back to university and do a postgrad. So I had Isla, so I had a small child, 4 days a week job, and then I had to agree to do a postgrad, which I was fine with, but I didn't realise just how intense that would be. So it was like two modules a year over 4 years, an internal placement in your own workplace, an external placement in somewhere else. That was a lot. So you're talking like kind of 5,000 word essays, a lot of research, a lot of reading. That kind of took over my life. So I just graduated.
Yes, congratulations.
So relieved. So to finally be graduated and have that out the way, COVID obviously played a bit of a funny thing with my numbers, with my dates. But so to be finally graduated, I think people don't realise that to be a teacher of the deaf, it's a whole new qualification. So it's a 4-year degree. Yeah,
like I have seen you and Mrs. Niven, like the way, I don't want to say Miss Niven away to their school, the way how you work for uni, like what's involved in it. And I thought to say it is a lot of work, where I'm like so surprised.
That's huge.
How much involved in it to be a teacher of the deaf. I was quite shocked with seeing. And
I think other teachers don't realise, a lot of other teachers don't realise that there is another qualification, that there is another level of it's a specialism, I suppose. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I've been at uni before, but that's the first time I've actually enjoyed uni because it was so specific to my job, and I was able to, whatever I was learning, was able to then take it back to school. Or, I mean, I used you with your mum's approval and with your permission. I used you as a case study, and it was so interesting then to actually use my research to see or to try to get real results. So I think we did pretty well.
I remember you doing that. Like, I actually remember being in the deaf department base and doing all the
tests.
It's like a wee cards, stuff like that. I remember.
So it's like speech test, speech and language tests, and then there's hearing tests, and then you would do your actual checks, so like your audiology checks, checking your cochlear implants, or if somebody's got hearing aids, we would do retubing, and we would do all the listening checks for them as well.
Oh.
So yeah.
That's very cool. So you then actually hearing devices as well?
Yes.
Well, obviously.
So your audiology module, I hated it. I'm a creative person, I'm not a sciencey person, so it was a lot of data, it was a lot of numbers, a lot of science that you have to remember, so it's quite medical based. So I didn't enjoy that module, but thankfully there's other people in the department who are good at that, so I can rely on them. And then you guys, the thing is, you be working with teenagers, you all know your technology, you all know your listening devices fairly well. You might not all look after them properly. And again, that's where we come in to sort of prompt you or to encourage you to, especially the hearing aid users, where we're like, have you cleaned it? Have you retubed it? When's the last time you got it checked? Do you need a new battery? So all these things, that's part of our job. But it's lovely working with teenagers who can do that or should do that independently.
Yeah.
I'll put that in there.
Yeah, I think everyone should independent, especially if you're a teenager. Like, you shouldn't know.
Yeah, how to look after it and not lose it.
Cheated,
and that's where we're constantly reminding you and other people how many times at a school trip or a sports day or a sports event where somebody's like, I've lost my cochlear implant or I've lost a part of it, and we have to say that's worth about $6,000. So one side of your head is a car, the other side of your head is making it a more expensive car. It's bonkers that's the money we're talking about. So I think you really have to look after your technology.
Definitely. Like when I was at Crosshouse, there was a poster that was saying how much different parts of a cochlear implant cost.
Do not lose it.
Yeah, it's crazy to see different parts like chargers. Like to say, if you lost it, what you said, that would cost a lot, and need to have really good care of them. Like, especially we lucky in Stockland because we got the NHS thing.
Yeah. So the NHS, you're getting that from the NHS.
Yeah.
So there's other countries where you would have to pay for that technology.
Yeah, I was talking about that another day. Who was it? And saying how like crazy it is, because you realise how grateful you are.
Oh yes.
For having to hear the cochlear implant where other people can't.
They don't get it.
I know it's crazy, but anyway, let's move on.
that would become very political, Cara. Yes.
Just, you know what, I might have ended up talking different topics. See how we talk about deaf pupils. How do you help a deaf pupil in high school? Like, what do you do in classes or in school?
So if I start at the very beginning, because that's a very good place to start. It starts in P6, so we call it enhanced transition. So when you're about P5, P6, we invite you guys from your primary school to come and visit us. So we do a few visits. We do, like, I started the HID lunches, so we were doing deaf department lunches. So every Tuesday, all deaf pupils from all year groups could come and have lunch with us, a safe space to come and chat. And it was just a chance for first to sixth year to kind of meet each other and get to know each other. So that meant we could invite the primaries, so primary 6 and primary 7 pupils could come along, give them a tour, let them speak to the older pupils like yourself, and then when they eventually come to first year, they feel familiar with us, with the building, with what's going on. And then we kind of start from their timetable. We have a look before you all come back. Not me, but obviously Mrs. Savage and management. They have a look at the timetable and they decide who's getting what support, where is support needed. So it tends to be mainly in the more academic subjects, although obviously there's writing and stuff in every subject nowadays, but you'll tend to be left alone in PE, and we'll tend to leave you alone in, say, maybe home economics or in music. However, we'll focus on social subjects in English and maths, and we'll give you support in class where you'll have a teacher of the deaf sitting beside you or sitting near you, and then we'll also allocate time in the base where it's either one-to-one or a small group of you, and that'll be where we'll pre-teach things or go over vocabulary, or it's where we'll post-teach and go over what's happened in class. That's the perfect world. Obviously, sometimes it would end up where I had a 6th year, I had 2 first years, I had a 5th year doing a different subject. So it ends up, you feel like a primary teacher again. I'm spinning plates and I've got you on the computer and I've got somebody else doing an essay and I've got first years doing a quiz for me. So it ends up just working out what you guys need. There's a balance between you guys freaking out saying, I've got a history test on Friday and we need to go over history stuff. And from our point of view going, do you know what, there's other things we could be working on. And there's a bigger picture. So part of our focus, I suppose, is also on life skills. Resilience, leaving school. Actually thinking about when you don't have us to support you, how are you going to cope? Which is terrifying, obviously. And now you're at that stage. If we've done our job properly, you should be okay.
Yes, I'm okay.
You will be. So part of our balancing act in our department is to decide how much subject-specific help do we give you that's for your history class, for your English class, for drama, and how much do we then decide this is actually what you need to work on. And that is the bigger picture that we look at for making sure that you cover deaf history, deaf culture, deaf language, because obviously a lot of our pupils, in fact all of our pupils are oral. You all speak. We don't have signers, and historically our school hasn't signed. However, there's a place for that as well, and there's a place for sign language so that you're part of a deaf community. That's very important. So we need to balance out what we think is needed versus what you're doing in class.
I'm totally with you. Like what you were saying, the support you give to deaf people in classes, and obviously I was at that stage.
Well, how did you find it then, what we were doing?
Oh, definitely. You were doing everything amazing, obviously. Like, having a teacher deaf in class, it did make me feel better.
A lot of people say that.
Because you know you're not missing anything out, and you're not stressing out what the teacher been said.
But it's kind of half and half. It's 50-50. Half of you say, oh, I'm so glad you're here. Like, oh, I hated that last class, I was on my own. And then I've got the other half where you walk in a room and they go, oh, please don't sit next to me. Like, go up the back, don't talk to me. And there's that embarrassment. There's that they don't want to be singled out. They don't want to be seen as deaf. And I get that. So again, that's us working with individuals and their personalities to go, right, Cara wants me beside her and she wants me, she would like me every period. Whereas I've got other pupils in my head where I know they'll be like, you scoot yourself up the back, don't talk to me, don't look at me, and give me my notes after. And I'll be like, that's fine if you're still doing the work. If you're still showing me that you're coping, I'll do that for you, but we'll have a chat after. And we'll have a chat to decide, was that the best thing for you? And 9 times out of 10, they'll be like, oh, I've just bombed that test. And you're like, I'm coming to sit beside you because you're missing so much. And that's where when we do our hearing checks and you're like, why are you showing me like picture cards? I can then say, well, you got 50% of those cards wrong, which tells me you're missing 50% of the information. Or you misheard me 20% of the time, which tells me in a class you're missing 20% of that information. So that's like if you read a book and you skip a fifth of that book. What have you missed? You're not understanding that then. You've missed the ending or you've missed what it's about. That's where we fill in the gaps.
Yeah, and it's also the same what's it called today? We were doing like ling sound.
So your ling sounds is just to check your technology, that you're hearing all the frequencies.
Yeah. I remember we were doing it with the BBC, the social, who...
When Cara was in the BBC, mind that?
I don't know why I can say that, but yeah.
That was like a name drop, like...
Well, yeah, what was you saying? The support is totally like different than Pioneer, I would say.
Oh yeah.
It's amazing, especially in high school. You go into, like, you never know you're going to college or uni after it. And having used in class really helps.
Yeah.
Because you know this anyway, but you know what support I need. You know what I mean? That way, like...
But we only know what support you need from talking to you. So we would Mrs. McDermott would give you like a form at the end of the year. Every year there's an evaluation. So we'd say what's worked for you, what did you enjoy, what did you not like, and what could we do better. We then have a GIRF me chat, so it's like your GIRFIC is getting it right for every child. So we would sit down and have a meeting with every single one of you to say at the very beginning, is anything changed? What does your house look like? What's home life like? What's your hobbies? What's your interests? We get a kind of that bigger picture. I think that's the joy of our job. The beauty of our job is getting to know you all so personally.
Yeah.
Whereas probably in primary you do that as well, but you've obviously got maybe 30 to 33 kids in front of you. You get to know them over the year, but we get you guys for 6 years. And we're in all your classes and we're seeing you in the base and we've got you at lunch times and we do the deaf football and we take you on trips and we do like the day out and stuff. Yeah. So it really does become, it's so cliche, but it becomes a bit of a family. It becomes quite a tight-knit group. And obviously we do our best to keep everyone in that family. Yeah. Not everyone wants to be part of that deaf community and that deaf culture, but we do our best obviously to make everyone feel included and heard and accepted.
Yeah, I know what you mean by that. Like, how many people would you send to the department? About 20?
We're usually between 20 and 25, yeah.
Yeah, 20, 25. It's great to have I'm saying it's great, but it's great to have like a HID day out.
So it's now Department for the Deaf.
Yeah, department has changed.
Yes.
What's it called?
So it was. So this is a history lesson. It was the hearing impaired department.
I didn't know if I should say or not.
Well, I'm going to, Cara. I'm going to, because hearing impaired has a connotation. It has a kind of link to being impaired, being less than, having something that needs fixed, and that goes against what the deaf community and what deaf people would want. That's kind of come from the medical side of the world. Yeah. So there's the British Association of Teachers of the Deaf, so that's BATOD, and they would say it's deaf pupils, deaf department, and so what we're doing is we're changing the name of the department to align with what is expected and what's now socially acceptable.
That's really good, to be honest.
It's exciting. So we're moving away. It's always been HID, so we've never fully always said hearing impaired department, and I've never liked it. And when I was at that school, it was HID. You would speak about HID. So having now worked there, we've finally got them to change the name.
That is really good. Did it take that long?
It's always been a process.
So we have talked about a few times, I'm sure. Oh, that's great to know, though. I think it'd be good.
That's a world exclusive there for you.
I'm quite happy for you.
A North Lanarkshire exclusive.
That is good. I'm quite happy.
Good, isn't it?
Yeah. What do you love about your job?
Just that. So getting to know you guys so well, and also we have the best team in the school, and I don't say that lightly. So there's departments where they all get on and they're quite close, but I would say we are a tight-knit department. It obviously helps that we're all genuinely friends. We want to see each other do well. We all have the same values, and it shows from Missy Savage at management level right down to me and Miss Reid and stuff, who have just came into the department, who are just graduating and don't have the same. Well, Miss Reid does have mass, like massive level of teaching because she's been teaching in New Zealand and different places. We've all come from different backgrounds, and we've got all this experience. So we all bring our own sort of flavour of teaching, or we all bring our own sort of personalities, but we all have the same values where you guys come first. It's about accessibility and inclusion and making sure that you guys are all looked after. And I think I genuinely go to work going, oh, this is good. And I don't think you can say that in every school.
Yeah, just being at that department. So what's it called again?
You're putting me on the spot. Department for the deaf.
Okay.
Or the deaf department. See, we had issues because we were like deaf education department. It's shortened to DED, and we were like, we can't have DED. So Department for Deaf Education. Department of Deaf Education. Yeah, it's one of them.
Oh, just imagine if
the deaf department.
Just imagine if someone to say, I'm going to
DED.
Just to see the teachers or something.
I'm going to DED. I mean, it'll be funny.
I know that would be. I know you said this earlier. When you went to the school you go to, it's where you're working right now. Do you remember seeing the deaf department when you were a pupil?
No, I don't. And I think that I had deaf pupils in my class, so I remember them. One of them was a fantastic runner. She was like a brilliant athlete. So I remember the deaf pupils, but if you're not in the deaf department, you're never in the rooms. There's no need for you to be in the rooms. Yeah. I think the teachers of the deaf are way more discreet than you think they are. So as a pupil, you're like, oh, they're sitting right next to me and everyone's going to notice. People don't care. They don't. No. They're so busy in their own drama, in their own wee world, especially teenagers. They're not noticing us. So when I was at school, I don't think I noticed teachers of the deaf in the room, but they must have been. They would have been. So I think that's testament to the teachers and the staff doing their job, but maybe not making it obvious. Probably in certain classes they would have made it obvious because they would have been managing the class and would have been helping with behaviour issues. And we do that fair share sometimes where if the teacher's needing a bit of team teaching or they're needing a bit of help and the class is a bit rowdy, we will step in and we will make ourselves heard and we will stand up and be a teacher. However, we're there for that deaf pupil. So our focus is on the pupils we're working with, not on the wider class.
Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah, so you wouldn't actually think of it. Like,
no, nobody notices us.
Think that it doesn't make a difference in a class. Like,
no.
You won't tell.
What we've always said is sometimes we've got the big stand mics where when the teacher wears like the radio mic and the speaker's in the room, especially in the kitchen. So we used it for cake craft. So if you're in a very noisy kitchen and everyone's banging their pots and trays and their utensils and they're doing the dishes and the taps are on, so noisy, if we've got the speaker in the corner hooked up to the teacher with a mic, it benefits everybody. There's other people up the back of the kitchen going, oh, that's so handy, like, oh, I can hear properly, or oh, I didn't miss that thing. Actually then they're like, well, that was a good thing. That's an advantage for everybody, not just for the deaf pupils.
Exactly, because that kitchen is quite big, to be honest. I would say it's quite big for a kitchen. Yeah. And if you're right at the back and the boards, like, well, you need to know during class, would make a difference for everyone. Totally. I was not thinking that, actually. Well,
we're helping everybody.
Like, I was not thinking that. While we talk about cake craft, you know, how you see the first episode with Aidan, how I was talking about the funny story that happened in cake craft with the, oh, you don't mind me saying this, with the water tap. It was actually...
It was me.
Yeah,
it was me. So Aidan and Cara were doing their thing. Part of your kitchen prep is to start filling the basin, get the basin filled up with hot soapy water so that you can wipe down your table and then you can do your dishes. And you guys were so busy getting all your stuff, getting your cake craft supplies, and I stood and watched thinking, I'll not say anything because I won't step in. They're going to notice. Oh, that's quite full. That basin's quite full. It's overflowing now. Oh, no, that's definitely going to run out the floor. So I was like, guys. And of course, that's how I would get your attention. Yeah. So everyone else was like, oh, what's she so frantic about? And I'm like, I was like, the tap. And I was like, and then of course it became like a deaf joke because I was like, did you not hear that? And you were like, no.
No, that was
So if we had
funny.
flooded, that technically would have been my fault. But I'm like, I was waiting on you going, if you're in a kitchen yourself, there's a life lesson. If you've turned on the tap, remember you've turned it on, even if you can't hear it.
And I was actually pretty funny because I'm just standing there like, what?
Like, could you turn your tap off?
I know when it's, all the bubbles.
Or things like the buzzer going for your cakes. So
Oh,
here in the
yes.
oven buzzer, again, when the buzzers are all going off and you're busy and you're focused and you're so into your decorating and stuff or whatever you're doing, the buzzer would be going off. You'd be like, guys. Be like, oh, of course. Like, get your cake out the oven before it burns. So it's those tiny wee things where when you do have a teacher of the deaf, what would have happened if we weren't there? You would have sorted it, or you would have learned the lesson of, well, that burned my cake, I'll remember next time, or, oh, I flooded the kitchen, don't do that again. But having a teacher of the deaf there just meant we were there to support and make sure nothing happened.
Yeah, I know, definitely. Good timing though, the perfect time of the class to come in for.
I know.
Like that, I know. It shows how you need to deal with it, so like, I love that.
But then one of my funniest stories, which has nothing to do with school because we were on a trip, as you know what I'm going to say. So we took you all to a trampoline park, and one of your things has been building up your self-confidence. My thing with you for years has been know your worth, know that you're capable of doing hard things and tricky things. So we went to a trampoline park and I had got everyone to cross over this like monkey bar bridge basically that fell onto like a foam pit, and it was quite high, and a couple of the boys had done it and somebody else, a couple of the girls had went across, and I had managed to get across. My old body, I was like, right, if I can do it, so you're at the other side, we're all watching you. I was like, Cara, you can definitely do it, it's not that hard, grab hold, swing as fast as you can, you'll be totally fine. And you proper swung back, and then horizontally just went boof and face planted to the point I was like, oh, I've killed her, like I've actually I was trying to build your self-confidence and I've just mashed your face.
No, that was so funny because I remember I was the last person.
And we all went, and then we laughed.
Because I remember like holding it and I just fell flat down. And I didn't move. I thought, did that just actually happen? Like, what do I do? What do I even do? I could actually feel it.
And then I had to text your mum. I think I texted your mum and your sister after it to say, and again, that's how close we all are. We end up like, we've got your family's numbers, we'll keep in touch with the families. And I had texted your mum to say, oh my God, I wish we'd filmed it, but is she okay? Like, is she sore? But it was so funny.
So funny. Just all I remember is getting up and I just laughed and I didn't know how to react. I was just like, laugh.
It was good.
I'm sorry. I was just like actually laughing. I remember we were going for lunch after
Yes.
and we just kept talking about it. Like,
too funny.
Oh, that was the funniest.
And my other thing that I was so proud of, not your certificates, not your SQA stuff, that when we went the Blackpool day out and I managed to convince you to go on, what was it called?
Icon roller coaster.
Icon, oh, you remember. Icon, the roller coaster, and Cara had an actual full-blown panic attack. And you were like, I'm not doing it, I can't do it. And then we got you in the queue. And then in the queue, you FaceTimed your sister and she was like, you're not going on that. And we were like, yeah, we are. And you were like, does it go upside down? I'm like, just twice. And when you were on, after it, the first thing you said was, I'm so glad I did that.
You know, I was a
And that was a life lesson in,
yes,
you can feel rubbish before it, you can be so nervous, but to actually get over that hurdle, do it, and walk away and be like, I did it.
I know, like, I remember that, like, you're like, well, let's go. We are going on.
You can do it.
No, we're not. No, we're not. Let's go. And then we're like, right, okay, I go into the queue. And I remember just standing there like, what have you put me through?
And then I was like, put your cochlear implants in your pocket.
Yeah.
Do not lose them.
Yeah, and I put in the bag.
So you did.
Like, oh, I can't. So I took them off. I remember we were sitting, and then the guy who fits the, what's it called?
Like the harness.
Yeah, I remember saying that I please make that tight as a tag. And then, I don't know if you remember, see, like, how people need to stand waiting to go on. They were all cheering.
Because I was like, you weren't going to go on.
And I just like, that was so funny. But after it was the best thing.
Yeah.
Like, it was the best thing.
It's that sense of accomplishment that after every hard thing you've ever done, you've had how many, 9, 10 cheerleaders behind you going, you can do this, you'll be fine. And that is the beauty of our job, where we then see you accomplish it and be like, told you.
Oh, yeah. And then we got the picture of it as well.
It's on my desk. I've got it. I've got it on my wall.
It's my room as well. Oh, I know, I won't forget that too. That was the best way to end the trip, I would say, like the best. And that was the last trip. That was the last roller coaster to go on, wasn't it?
Yep.
So that was a perfect way to end it, because I could not stop talking about it, because how it was absolutely amazing. Like, oh yeah, I know it really was. Thank you for making me go on it. Like,
you're welcome.
Everything where I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing that. You encouraged me to go. Like, you can do it. Like,
and that's just our
like exams, roller coaster, like everything. I'm like, oh.
So the roller coaster for me was like your Nat 5 art exam.
Yeah.
I asked you to queue up. I didn't say you have to go on it. I said just get in the queue.
Yeah.
Just get to the front of the queue. Right, sit in the seat and get the harness on, you'll be fine. And it was those tiny steps that when it came to getting you through an exam, now I don't know if you'll remember this, but you were adamant that you were never going to do an exam. So you were like, I'm not sitting an exam, I don't want to do it, I don't need it. And I'm like, just one Nat 5 exam to show that you can do it. And it was the same day that Stranger Things new season opened on Netflix. And I was like, your reward to yourself is if you come into this room, you don't need to write anything, just come, sit down, put your name on the paper. I said, I'll be so happy if you get across the door. And then, of course, you open the paper and I was like, right, all I'm doing is reading one question and see what you can remember. And your head went down and you were like, blah. Yeah, I think you wrote about 8 pages. And again, once that was done, obviously we didn't know the results for a wee while, but after it was done, you were like, I can't believe I did that. Yeah, you managed it.
Yeah, I was really proud of that, like super proud, because you helped me through with art, like learning Van Gogh, Roy. That doesn't.
Well remembered. Well, see, told you, you'll never forget that now.
And I remember you saying that to me. Like, we both worked on it, but we worked, like, how do I explain it? We worked so long on it so I could get in my head, and you know. But you have helped me that long, like, I can't explain it. Like, I feel like we worked so hard on it, and then how to explain it?
It's the outcome that you wanted. I think that to put that amount of effort in to anything, to then actually come out and go, I passed. I got a Nat 5. That's a wee nod to any deaf pupil in primary school, or any younger deaf people, or any like parent, I suppose, who has a deaf child, going, you can do all the same things that everyone else can do. Might take you a wee bit longer, might need a wee bit more support, but you can do it. What's going to stop you is your confidence in yourself, your belief in yourself. The only person that was going to stop you that day was you. Yeah, me. You had all the tools, you had done the research, you had done, all I did was like help you with the notes and stuff, but you had to go away and memorise those notes. You had to go away and learn them in the right order. You had to remember. I couldn't have done I didn't do anything for you. You did the exam. So
yes, I know what you mean by that. Yeah.
That's an inspiration for younger deaf people, and it's a bit of hope, I suppose, that you can do it. Like,
definitely.
We've got lots of deaf pupils who are now at uni, who are now doing all sorts of jobs, who have progressed and are doing fabulous things. And it's like, just have a bit of faith that you can.
Yeah. And I actually still remember that day doing the exam, coming home and watching Stranger Things. Because I remember you were making sure I was going in that day. Because I remember I just kept talking about Stranger Things. I'm like, oh, that's you coming out. I'm like, I don't know, stop.
It was a holiday, so do you remember it fell on a bank holiday, so I had to come in.
And were you not off on that day?
So some of the SQ exams happened to be on a holiday, so it wasn't a working day for me. So I was like, and you kept saying, will you definitely be in school? And I'm like, yes. Like,
are you going to be there?
And I think you thought, well, it's a holiday, nobody will be in school. And I'm like, no, but people who are doing the art exam will be in school. The teachers who are doing, it's like, I will be there. So I came in on my day off.
I can imagine me.
But it was great, because then it was like an hour exam, and then I got to go home and watch Stranger Things.
Oh, I just remember then, and now obviously we've done photography as well, the higher photography.
I love that you're saying we did photography. No, you did photography. I just helped you.
I don't think we've been in classes. I think of we.
I do feel I should have got a higher photography.
Oh yeah, I got higher as well.
Yes, so you did.
I was shocked with that. I don't know why.
But you did it.
I know, definitely. It was very good to think back at like how I'd done that.
But I think you always underestimated the work you were putting in. You were finding it hard. So other folk were finding it hard as well, but other folk were then going home going, well, I find it hard, I don't want to do anything. So they're not going to pass. Whereas you were going, I'm finding this really hard, can you help me? Absolutely. So if somebody's going to work for it and somebody's going to put in the effort, as a teacher, that's all we're asking. Like, I can't do the exam for you, but I can help you as much as you want helped. So there's other folk in that class where you're going, this is so hard and I'm never going to get higher. I'm looking around going, there's other folk who are really struggling as well, Cara. But you're putting the effort in, you're sitting doing the hours. That's all we can ask of you. So I think that's a lot to be said for your character and how you approach things. Yes, you have a freak out, usually have a meltdown, a good cry, and then you get on with it. Boom, done. That's all we ask.
Yeah, I know. I'm just thinking all the years they need to go with that. I'm like, I know.
And we're still pals. There we go.
Yes, I know. Look how it's now. That's good. That way I'm like, now she's going to have peace with that, but we're still like pals. You know what I mean?
don't know if we'll have peace because I've still got all your pals at school. They're just as chatty.
Well, now you need to deal with that now. But bye, guys. If there's any listeners who has listened to this who wants to become a teacher of the deaf, what advice would you give them?
Oh, good question. So it's quite a tricky one because you have to be a teacher first to get the qualification to train to be a teacher of the deaf, and you kind of have to have the job first before you're allowed to do the qualification. So it's a bit, how do you get into it is the tricky thing. So one, look for deaf departments or deaf schools in your area. Ask them for a visit, ask if you can go and see the department, meet the colleagues, possibly volunteer, or if there's community-based clubs. So we've got like a deaf club in Lanarkshire. There's also like deaf football and things where if you can go along and volunteer, that would kind of get you started. And then it's a case of waiting for a vacancy to come up that's for a teacher of the deaf. And if, depending on the way the school works and who the other staff are, they might be willing to take on somebody who still has to do the qualification rather than somebody who's already qualified. So that's really the only way to do it, I think. Edinburgh Uni is the only course in Scotland. Birmingham Uni is the only course in England. So some people, like I did, go to Edinburgh Uni and actually go to the university, do some modules and then do all your work at home. Some people do it distance learning, like digitally online, and do it through Birmingham, but all their classes then are kind of via video link and stuff. So it's it depends how you work. I liked a wee day in Edinburgh and going to the uni and feeling like a student again. It was lovely. And got a couple of cheeky wee days out at school to go to uni. And learn nice things. It was great. So thoroughly enjoyed it. Obviously then that takes away the support from you guys, because for a couple of days I'm not in school. A couple of days I've got prep for exams and things. So that's an impact on a school. So to become a teacher of the deaf just depends on the area and the council and what the school needs.
Yeah, I remember when you said that you got uni, I was like, oh no, what do you mean?
How dare you leave me?
Yeah, I remember, I think I was with Mrs. McDermott, I'm sure. And Annie, you gave me a work on Teams. And then obviously I was typing and you were typing back. I don't know if you remember.
I could see it live. So the beauty of the technology we now have is that anything on Microsoft Teams is that if you're working on a document that I've set or that is in a shared area, I can see it coming up live. So I was sitting in my lecture, listening to my lecture with my notes, and I'm watching your essay come up. So I'm then... No, so it was good because then I'm like,
done that.
I knew you were working, and then I was able to put. So remember, I would put like wee feedback comment boxes. So I'd be like, keep going, you're doing really well, brilliant. So that was multitasking, but it meant I knew, and then I could also then text colleagues back in the school to say, right, if Cara's finished that job, I've got other stuff in her tray, or I've left other stuff. So that's part of our job.
Yeah. I know I'm quite shocked you've done that. Well, I can't believe you've done that. But see, when you were talking about the advice for if anyone wanted to be a teacher, I think that's really good advice to give, because it's good to volunteer to see what's it like and all that. And see, when you were talking about uni, how long did you do it for? Was it like when I was in first year?
Mine's worked out as 4 years. I had a gap because of COVID for a year, so I took a gap, a sort of break, and I deferred, so it was 4 years all in. So it's a long course. It is a full postgrad degree. Sadly, you don't get any extra money for it though. You're still a teacher. I remember saying to my papa, that's me graduated. I got my email through and he was like, great, is that you got a pay rise? And I was like, no. He was like, sorry, what? I'm like, yeah, so you don't get anything extra. And I think there's been a fight down south where they keep asking for, it's a specialism. I've went to uni again. Surely we should get paid a little bit extra because we're doing that extra job. And they're like, no, you're just a teacher.
You should though.
Not just a teacher, but you're still on that teacher scale.
Yeah. You should, because you guys do deserve it though. No.
Thanks, Cara. You write to your local MSP and let them know.
I'm sure well then. Yeah. I think that's all today. I really enjoyed that chat.
Thank you for having me. I just feel like that was us in the base.
I know,
catching up. So Cara used to say, I've got so much to tell you. No matter what you'd been doing, I've got so much to tell you. And be like, right, do you need a cup of tea? Yeah. So then we would sit and you would just, from start to finish, in order, be like, here's everything that happened. Be like, okay.
Yeah, I tell you, every single thing. But I remember I would just come and see you in your free period, be like, are you free for a chat?
Yes.
No, I remember, I know. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. I definitely enjoyed it, and I also learned new things as well from you.
Good.
It's yeah.
Well, I hope you continue with this, because having watched your social media journey and kind of encouraged you, probably when other people were like, why try to do social media, encouraged you to be like, that's an actual job.
Yeah.
Treat it like a business.
Exactly.
If you want to do that, you keep plugging away at it, but you need to keep going and be consistent.
Definitely.
And when it gets tough, just know that you can keep going and you'll come out the other side and go, oh, I'm so glad I did that.
Yeah, and you actually, for people, you were my social media manager at school. I'm just saying, you were like, everything I said, what do I do with this? What do I, like, you were...
I think people forget, when you're doing social media, there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. So it's all very well to get a collaboration or to get a sponsorship or anything that you're working with. However, alongside that comes the emails and the correspondence and the scripting time and the recording time and the editing and then the invoicing after it and then the emails after it to get clarification, and it's a part-time job.
Yeah, definitely.
So now with you going to college, you can make it your part-time job.
Yes.
And I will see you fly.
Yeah.
And remember me when you're famous.
Yes, of course I will. Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for watching this podcast, and hopefully I'll see you guys soon. Thank you for watching.